Subclass 1.7, Short-Term Reinsurance Policy, Part 2. So methods of reinsurance. There are two basic methods of reinsurance. They talk about the facultative reinsurance and the treaty reinsurance. And we're going to look into them and discuss them in more detail. So facultative reinsurance. Facultative reinsurance is the oldest form of reinsurance. Having accepted a risk, an insurer may decide to pass some of it to another risk carrier. So to do this, the insurer will approach reinsurers either directly or via a reinsurance broker. All the relevant information concerning the risk will need to be presented to the proposed reinsurers. Treaty reinsurance. A treaty is a formal, legally binding agreement. Under this method, an agreement is made between an insurer and a reinsurer or reinsurers. The agreement allows that an insurer will cede and the reinsurer will automatically accept all reinsurances which are offered within the limits of the treaty. Pools, not a swimming pool or a diving pool. It's a pool, another type of insurance pool. The principle of an insurance or reinsurance pool is that all the members put their premiums for a particular risk into a common fund. So they pool the money together. They then share the aggregate claims arising either in the same proportions as their premiums or in some other pre-arranged manner. Any profits, losses, or expenses are shared in the same way. Underwriting pools. Smaller developing insurers which wish to enter a new market, class of or type of business may have neither the expertise nor the necessary capacity to establish a sound foothold. They may, therefore, form a pool represented by an experienced underwriter in the chosen field of development with sufficient collective capacity to accept competitive lines of business. Facultative obligatory treaty. Facultative obligatory reinsurance arrangements combine some of the principles of both the facultative and the treaty methods of reinsurance. Like the surplus treaty, the capacity is generally a multiple of the cedant's net retention. The big difference between the two is that under the latter, in other words, the last one, the cedant, the insurer, has no compulsion to cede business. The risks ceded to a facultative obligatory arrangements are likely to be both fewer and larger than those ceded to a surplus treaty. This results in a less well-balanced portfolio of businesses for reinsurers. Under a facultative obligatory treaty, an insurer has the option to cede business to reinsurers. It is not bound to cede under the treaty. So it's out of their own will and choice. This is where the facultative element of the name of these treaties arises. The insurer has complete freedom of choice in cessions just as it would have under a facultative arrangement. So they can choose what they want to reinsure and what not, and how they want it to be. Facultative obligatory treaties provide an insurer with considerable flexibility. Reinsurance commission. Reinsurance commission is a financial advantage arising out of reinsurance business. Insurers benefit from contributions by reinsurers towards their acquisition and management costs. Reinsurers acquire business without the expenses of underwriting primary accounts. Reinsurance commission usually applies solely to proportional business, which is why it is considered here. Profit commission. Insurers are entitled to some compensation from reinsurers for the disparity in workloads arising from the account. This is the principle of reinsurance commission. However, too high of a level of flat rate commission can generate problems for the reinsurer. One answer to this difficulty is the use of a profit commission. Sliding scale commission. Sliding scale commission is another technique which attempts to maintain a reasonable relationship between insurer and reinsurers as far as payment of an equitable commission is concerned. This is an alternative form of profit sharing whereby the ceding commission is varied according to the loss ratio experience of the treaty. Loss ratio is the claims expressed as a percentage of premiums. Loss participation. A loss participation clause, also known as the malus clause, is a form of reverse profit commission. Under this arrangement, a share of losses under a proportional treaty must be borne by the insurer in the event that the loss ratio exceeds an agreed percentage. The insurer's share of such loss will probably be capped at an agreed maximum amount. Proportional reinsurance. In non-proportional forms of cover, the insurer and the reinsurers do not share its loss in fixed proportions and may not share in some losses at all. It will bear all losses up to a certain figure. Reinsurers will deal with the balance of any loss above that figure, usually with an upper limit for their own involvement. Working excess of loss. This term is usually applied to that layer of excess of loss, reinsurance where a number of losses are expected each year. A working excess of loss arrangement is usually placed with the reinsurer by means of a treaty. However, it can also be a facultative arrangement. Maximum amount. The insurer will decide on the maximum amount that they wish to pay in the event of a single loss. This is called the retention. Any losses that are less than the retention are retained by the insurer and the reinsurer will not become involved. The reinsurer will only participate for those amounts in excess of the retention. So the retention is sometimes referred to as the deductible or priority. When you look at catastrophe excess of loss, this type of reinsurance is arranged to protect the insurer against a major loss arising either by way of an accumulation of losses from one event or from one single large loss. In South Africa, the Natal floods and more recently, the Cape storms are good examples of events that led to accumulation of losses from one event. There were hundreds and hundreds of houses and vehicles damaged. Stop loss insurance. This type of reinsurance is sometimes referred to as aggregate excess of loss and excess of loss ratio. It is designed to protect the class of business from severe fluctuation in result. The reinsurer will not be liable until the loss ratio for the year reaches an agreed percentage of the premiums. Thereafter, the reinsurer is responsible for all losses up to the limit of the treaty. Aggregate excess of loss. Aggregate excess of loss. Reinsurance works on the same principle as stop loss reinsurance. Instead of representing the amounts as percentages, however, coverage is expressed in actual monetary amounts. Both methods contain the reinsured's total retained loss cost. Stop loss insurance. This type of reinsurance is sometimes referred to as aggregate excess of loss and excess of loss ratio. It is designed to protect the class of business from severe fluctuation in result. The reinsurer will not be liable until the loss ratio for the year reaches an agreed percentage of the premiums. Thereafter, the reinsurer is responsible for all losses up to the limit of the treaty. Aggregate excess of loss. Aggregate excess of loss reinsurance works on the same principles as stop loss insurance. Instead of representing the amounts as percentages, however, coverage is expressed in actual monetary amounts. Both methods contain the reinsurer's total retained loss cost. Risk, risks attaching, losses occurring, and claims made. Excess of loss contracts are arranged to protect the whole account for a period of time. One important consideration is the definition of precisely when and how the reinsurer is going to be liable in respect of losses. It is very much in the insurer's interest to ensure that its reinsurance coverage provides adequate protection relative to the underlying book of business. Problems would be caused if there were any gaps or overlaps in reinsurance protection. Excess of loss contracts are arranged to protect the whole account for a period of time. One important consideration is the definition of precisely when and how the reinsurer is going to be liable in respect of losses. It is very much in the insured's interest to ensure that its reinsurance coverage provides adequate protection relative to the underlying book of business. Problems would be caused if there were any gaps or overlaps in reinsurance protection. Thank you very much. If you still got any questions, please, you know what to do. Thank you.